Let's rock and roll, boys.
Hello and welcome to another Nintendo podcast, the only podcast on the internet where you can get all the Nintendo news you can find anywhere else. I'm your host, Austin Cummings, and as always, I'm joined by Matt Schultz.
Hello.
And Danny Tortelli.
Good evening, good day, whatever time you're watching us.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a very versatile podcast. Hey, guys, before we begin, we want to thank our sponsors. Sponsor number one, Casper Mattress. Why buy a mattress when you can get a box in the mail? And Blue Apron, it's all the fun of delivery without they're actually making it for you. Anyway, we would be very happy to have either of them. Audible.com, sponsor the show. Boys, how are the both of you?
So well. It's a little late for us here in Chicago, but that's okay. We're running on pure Nintendo joy.
I've been running on pure Nintendo joy for the past 27 years, and it's not going to stop now. Boys, let's start this show with a little segment that we always start it with. And Matt, what might the name of that segment be this time?
Oh, that's going to be a little bit of Big End of the News.
Big N in the news. All right, and we are back. Boys, for this segment of Big N in the news, we have a whopping 6 news items. So let's just kind of crank right through it.
Gris.
And the first news item is the most relevant. Now, longtime listeners of the show will remember that in last week's episode, so you did listen a whole 7 days, we talked about the idea of maybe doing a little Crystal segment where we're going to talk about Crystal Fox from Star Fox Adventures, give her an update, see how she's doing, recommend clothing options for her and the rest of the Star Fox team. But I did a little research on that, and we want to give a shout out to the CrystalArchive.com, which has already beaten us to the punch by roughly 12 years. They have been chronicling Crystal, and they even have the voice talent of Crystal from Brawl and Star Fox Assault.
Yeah, it sounds like this. Welcome to the Crystal Chronicles. I am Crystal.
I'm Crystal. How are you? Dun, 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 dun. It was Matt. Yeah, you've always done a spot on Crystal impression, which is why I find you to be a valuable party friend. Like, bring someone there, like, hey guys, party trick time, and I'm like,
how many of you have played Star Fox Adventures?
Everyone's like, oh, we don't remember Crystal, but we would love to see an impression of Tricky. If we could get that, that would be great. Okay,
I don't know.
Stay. Okay, let's play. All right, news item number 2.
Fire.
Matt, let's jump right to this one. Time for Wargroove special report. Matt, hit us with it.
Recently tweeted, as they always do, about every week or so with a little bit of updates. And this particular update basically was saying, highlighting the fact that there's going to be a ton of languages. It's been localized in a ton of different languages and regions of the world, which is pretty cool. And they kind of show a GIF of the same scene playing out, but with different characters, different languages. Of course, like every tweet that they post about Wargroove, there's always someone about, when's it coming out? And I am thankful for those people because that's what I want.
It's just you.
It's just me. Yeah, I have 28,000 Twitter accounts. Anyways, they responded. And they said that it'd be coming very soon, with information coming even sooner. And then in parentheses, again, the word soon.
Okay, interesting. Matt, let me ask you this, and Danny. What do you guys think the odds are we get a Nintendo Direct in January?
Because that's exactly what I was thinking.
Oh my gosh. Well, why don't you think away verbally? Verbalize those brain thoughts right onto the digital waves. What are your thoughts on the matter?
Well, I mean, here we go! A lot of people are commenting about Switch. Most people want this game on Switch. It's coming to Xbox, coming to PS4, it's coming to PC. But, I mean, it's an advanced war successor. People want this on their Nintendo handheld, and myself included, though it looks very pretty on an Xbox One, which is where I demoed it in Boston. However, soon that's a big deal. There's been a lot of rumors right now around Nintendo Directs. We've always have gotten a Nintendo Direct in January. We had a weird tweet direct last week. We kind of briefly chatted about in our last pod. But I feel personally that this means that they're going to be highlighted in a potential Nindy portion of a Direct, and I want to believe that they're going to announce their release date with Nintendo specifically. I think that
Let me ask you this. You said a lot of people are talking about the Switch, right?
Right.
A lot of people, a lot of top people, the best people, the greatest people talking about it. A lot of people are saying, you're not saying, a lot of people are. If they were to announce it for not Switch, but say Game Boy Advance, how would you feel about that? If you could play the game on one platform between the two, honest question.
Oh, Game Boy.
I would absolutely.
We went all the way back
Advance
to Game Boy
SP.
Advance, not the 3DS.
No, yeah, because we had we never got an Advance Wars game on 3DS. We got Game Boy Advance, and we
That's a
got
very
Days of
sore
Ruin
subject, Dan.
and Dual Strike of the DS. So we never got.
waiting. Nothing. You know
Right.
why? Because they were too busy like pumping out 8 million Fire Emblem games. But
Yeah,
you know,
and
it's
we're
okay.
thankful
Intelligent
for it, and
systems
we're
are
thankful
fine.
for our wife Tarja, who at some point I'll bring into the show. I'll let her out. There was a very good like Tarja like Figma where she's like leaning on the bookcase. You guys know about that?
This is
no.
the character.
Yeah,
Talking
let's get
about
that
the
image
Fire
up. JK, we can't. We'll get pulled down. In any event, okay. Well, I would love it for Game Boy Advance. Danny, have you played any of the Advance Wars? You kind of, you represent an important segment of another Nintendo podcast, which is,
Right.
just a friendly boy corner, of which it's, this market is not cornered on. Have you played Advance
Only friendly
Wars?
boys here.
So surprising, most of our audience, no, I have not.
Where do you think in like the MCU equivalent of levels of advanced war does Advance Wars rank? And what I mean by that is like when you consult the timeline, where does like Modern Warfare come in? Where does like Infinite Warfare, Black Ops? You have Ghost Recon, Advanced War
Yeah, where does
Fighter.
Advanced War fall into all that?
Yeah, where do you think that kind of like
Game-wise?
loops in? Like when they kind of put the timeline together and they're like, oh, like Spider-Man: Homecoming can't be 6 years after Avengers. It must be at least 8 because of
Yeah,
the,
this probably Advanced Wars. The genre probably falls in between Call of Duty Medal of Honor and
Call of Duty Medal of Honor. That's a
Black
mashup
Ops.
between two different franchises. Okay, I can see that. I see that. That's the
it
divergent
really
timeline.
bridges the two. It tells that story.
Yeah, that's the one where Ganon wins. Would you maybe choose to read us a little something about Yoshi's Crafted World getting a release date, or do you want to kind of summarize that for us?
Yeah, so according to this Twitter feed from Nintendo guy, March 29th.
Tweet direct.
This is what it's looking like for Yoshi's Crafted World. So that'll be on the lookout, kind of in around the horizon for spring. So yeah, are you guys looking forward to Yoshi's Crafted World? Did you guys play? Both of you are you completionists for Yoshi's World?
The woolly world.
The woolly.
the
Excuse
world
me.
of
Excuse
wool.
me. Take it back.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll put a little Gris style. Like I'll just every time any of us misspeak, I'll just put a translation on top
Gris.
of what we say because I can't cut anything because then the video gets goofed up.
Yeah, the trailer was cool. I mean, it showed a lot more of the aesthetic, which I really enjoyed. It kind of had it showed a little bit of the story with the crystals, the time stone, the mind stone.
Right. Yeah, we
Yoshi
definitely
stone.
watched the same trailer.
And I mean, like I said in the last podcast, it's something that I want. You know when you want a game? Like I want this. Like I want to see it come out and be successful. I hope the reviews are really positive for it because it's just so beautiful. But like we've seen with Kirby and actually a few Nintendo games. I mean, think about Kirby, think about Aces. I don't know, just like two games that aesthetically look pretty great for their franchises, but like are still lacking in a lot of ways. I mean, Aces is fun, but there's
Gris.
story mode. There's no like real like the most CGI you saw really was like in the opening cutscene. Not too
Yeah, I
different
mean, I
from
respect
Smash
the lore
Brothers.
of the racket collection, the 5 rackets
totally.
or whatever that were the same like style of story that this is, which is like collect the things for the
Right.
dominant power before Thanos does the snap, the decimation.
And Kirby basically played itself, so like I'm just really curious about like is this going to be a really good installment in the franchise?
Yeah.
A la,
Yoshi's
you know,
Island.
no, what's Kirby Robobot?
Yeah, Kirby Robobot. But even Robobot, okay, people really revere Robobot. Here's an ANP hot take. Thanks for tuning in. People love Planet
boy.
Robobot.
Hot take.
Okay, on 3DS. It's definitely good. It's well animated, a lot of secrets. But the game also,
So many secrets.
it is such a cakewalk, and it's like hard to, people always want to say like, oh, Nintendo games, like you want to collect everything, then it's hard. That game is still easy. I felt the same thing about Woolly World. Did I beat it though? No, so maybe I'm full of it for that case. But I did finish out Robobot, and the same thing goes for like Epic Yarn, a game Matt, you and I played way back in the day.
There we did.
It's a beautiful game. I finished that one too, but it never, even collecting everything, there's never any semblance of challenge. I loved with the Crafted World the announcement trailer where it's like Yoshi on a stick, and it's just like bouncing along. And I thought it was
the
like
best barbecue, by the way.
It reminded me of Yoshi's Story, the trailer, where it's like all the Yoshis kind of like walking around, all the different colored Yoshis are gathering around. It's like Yoshi's Story in N64, and then you have Bowser, baby Bowser, not Bowser Jr. Don't confuse the two. Very different. Do not disrespect the timeline on this show. You have like a very similar setup. Yoshi's Story, though, is a game I don't love in that it was just really easy and super short.
Danny, did you ever play Yoshi's Story?
I did. I love that game. You're speaking to someone who, not being a gamer, especially at a younger age, struggled with that game a little bit, but I eventually did beat it. I loved that. It was super fun. That was my first Yoshi game.
Yoshi was your favorite?
Ooh, I mean, basic green is always nice, but the blue
Black
one.
Yoshi. Black Yoshi.
Black Yoshi.
Right,
Not Black Yoshi. Get off the podcast. Get off the podcast.
That's a
This is
close
Black Yoshi. I
second.
don't want to talk about it anymore. There was one right answer to
It's
that.
gone from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'm so sad. I'm
what?
like,
You
it was
got-
in Smash Wii U.
got nerfed right
Why'd you
out
get
of
rid
it.
of the Black Yoshi?
Yeah, what do they got about Black Yoshi? I know the same thing too, because that was like a secret Yoshi back in Yoshi's Story, legitimately.
Right.
And yeah, it is weird. And let me talk about one other Yoshi color grievance I've really been harboring for a long time.
Oh,
Let it out,
okay.
man.
Let's talk
Let it
about
out.
Super Mario Sunshine. No green Yoshi in that game. Do you recall this? No green Yoshi in there. There was like pink
It depended
Yoshi,
on the
orange
fruit you
Yoshi.
brought it or something.
Yeah, you
Oh yeah, did it? When they eat one of the grapefruits and they would change
color, but there was
colors,
no
right?
way to get green until you sacrifice Yoshi to the watery depths of Davy Jones. Anytime you got in the water, he would dissolve into green. And then I was like, "There's my canon Yoshi. There he goes." It was like if-
Thanos snapping away.
In the world of Nintendo, when ancient Yoshi were migrating before the island split off, only all the colorful Yoshis
right back in the
ended up on
Pangea,
the-
right?
right of Nintendo. It's it's Nintendo science. And I'm
Nintendo
sure it'll be
science.
explained a little more at Nintendo World,
Right.
when that opens
I'm
up.
sure. I'm
or
sure that'll have
Nintendo
like a nice like
Themeland.
history museum people can walk through. Yeah. In any event, I
Fierce
was.
carnivorous Yoshi with fangs and teeth and everything.
Oh yes, yeah, and the prehistoric Yoshi. Let's talk a little bit more about actual news. Okay, Danny.
Yeah.
Read us a little bit about Smash sales.
Yeah, so on Nintendo Life, they share a little bit from a couple other sources as well. In Japan specifically, Smash Bros. Ultimate has already outsold the entire lifetime of the 3DS version of Smash Wii U. So that's in 5 weeks lifetime. That's pretty cool for Smash Ultimate. And they also cite Game Data Library, which is just a group that tries to aggregate the sales of a lot of different gaming consoles and games. It looks like, according to them, they look like a pretty legit site, so you can sure quote me on that. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has 2,628,087 units sold as of, that looks like January
87
6th.
units.
Yeah, sure. And 87 units.
Very good.
14,605 ways we died.
How many times can we reference?
Any of the MCU films? I think every time. Yeah, people are gonna just log in. They'll be like, "Oh, great! Another place on the internet to learn about Nintendo news I already know and MCU trivia I already know." Finally, once we start making prequel references throughout this podcast for the Star Wars prequels, then it'll really be complete, the trifecta. That'll truly make a fine addition to anyone's podcast collection.
Yeah, another happy landing. And again, that was from January 6th, that last data. Similar to like the Switch just passing everything from the Wii U, I don't doubt that Smash Bros. Ultimate will like soon past maybe the whole Wii U sales of that game.
Switch version is selling a lot, and
right.
I mean that's exciting. I think it's the perfect blend of the two games. I think what I'm most excited about, honestly, just chatting about the Wii U version, Smash 4, was how awesome it is to have all of the levels on one game, and to be able to some of those 3DS levels were awesome, like just so cool, and to see them all higher res and playing on the big screen has been a lot of fun. My most favorite probably is the Spirit Tracks level, specifically its version in the Switch. It just looks so good, and it's like, oh, I kind of want a Spirit Tracks on the Switch now. Like I don't know, like give me that game.
Sure.
Like, this is beautiful.
No, I agree. It's fun to see. I like seeing even like the Find Me level on in the Switch version. Like that even looks really good. Even for a game that had like very simple design between the me and then that one bird-like creature. But yeah, it really shines on the Switch version. I love that course is represented. Let's talk about a course that should not be represented though in that game, which is the giant one with like all the multiple colors, and you hit the lava things, and you die if you have 100% damage. You know what I'm talking about? It's like one of the biggest levels.
That's terrible.
Was that even a reference to?
I don't know.
Metopia?
Isn't it? Metopia?
I don't know.
Or is it? I don't remember.
I don't know. This is where ANP could have done a little research at a time. But that level.
Look, there are ANP listeners right now
sucks.
going, yeah, I know what they're talking about. I don't know what the hell that is either. Danny.
Fans, put it in the comment.
Danny,
if you
gosh
can,
darn it. I need you to get on there right
Danny,
now.
look it up. Danny, yeah. That's
Danny, you hear me, boy? I need you to
like
find what that level is from, and we need to tweet at that game. Austin Air, it was Great Cave Offensive, and it's from Kirby, and it sucks. Okay, I'm going to end this really rocky segment with Mario Tennis Aces. So our final big end news segment is this. There was a leak / a rumor, not even a leak, and it probably now is not even true. Game Explain made a video on it, which was quickly taken down, and they said, hey, probably isn't legit, but I still think it's fun. Let's talk about it. Data miners felt that they had found evidence in this, that Link, of course, the Legend of Zelda series, was going to be in Mario Tennis Aces. And I just want to say this. I so wish that this were true for two reasons. One, love Link, who doesn't, Nintendo fan. But number two is that, so Nintendo has done a decent job supporting their games on Switch with continual updates, many of which are free. We see that for Odyssey, we see it for Kirby, we see it for Tennis Aces, amongst others. But in the case of Aces, a lot of the characters that have come out as like new character are characters that you encounter in story mode and are just not playable. And it felt like in story mode, it was like, hey, clearly all the animations already exist for Blooper. So it's like, why am I waiting on getting it unlocked? Like, it felt like they're just holding it back.
Right.
Now, to the credit of Aces, they did do a nice job. There's like a co-op mode now. There's an additional story mode levels. So that did feel more substantial. But I think Diddy Kong was announced. You don't encounter him, and you can play as him now. But besides that, I don't know why. I wish Nintendo were not so stingy with the fun crossover characters. Like in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it's so fun to have Link, And the Breath of the Wild Link is awesome. How cool would it be? How much would it revitalize your guys playing?
Yeah, we had two Links in that game, really.
Yeah, exactly, because you have that, and you have Villager, who looks like a young, boyish Link. Young Link, exactly, man, I agree. But in the case of that, like, how fun would it be? ANP listeners are just screaming, like, you idiot, there were two costumes for Link. How fun would it be if there were, like, a content drop, and it was like, hey, you guys looking for a Metroid Prime? Here's Samus in her starship is like going to be in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Like, that would be so exciting. And the same thing could be said for tennis.
Totally.
Link is a character that you fight Phantom Ganon and in multiple incarnations by volleying, even Ganondorf himself volleying that light ball back and forth. Like, what is the Master Sword if not just a very sharp, head tennis racket? I've often said.
The Master Racket. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, let's finish that segment, boys, and let's move on to one last one. But before we do, I want to say this. PSA. Travis Strikes Again, our final news item, comes out on Friday. And as of recording, which is on the 15th right now, it comes out on the 18th of January. There are no reviews up. I gotta think the review embargo is the day it launches. It already got reviewed by Famitsu, but like everything they give it, like, 8s and 9s out of 10 because I give everything really high reviews. It looks so awful, and I want so badly for it to be not awful. I'll even take it's fine. I love the series. I love those characters. I played it at PAX, which I've already talked about. There was a game-breaking bug. Couldn't even finish it. It looks like trash unless it were running on an N64, in which case it looks okay. But
wait, you really just want it to be fine?
I want it to be great, but I know it's not.
It is going to be fine, and you're going to buy it, and you're going to regret it. And
It's not going to be good, so I'd like it to be fine. That's where we're at. Now, it is budget priced a little, so at least we have that going for it. But that said, please, this is just everyone taking hands and saying, just like at the end of It's a Wonderful Life, and we're all just looking up and we're saying we want him to be okay. Yeah. We want Travis Touchdown to be okay. We believe in him. He's a good man. So
we don't.
As such, he's not a great man. I would like the game to be good. So please let it be good. And welcome back. Here we are for the ANP headliner. Matt, read us a little bit to what we're going to be talking about today.
All right, so Nintendo president Shintaro Furukawa, if I
Mr. Nintendo,
right? Mr. Nintendo himself was speaking to a Japanese investing group, which he typically talks to. I think it's pronounced Nikkei,
Gris.
But who knows? Gris.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Gris.
right. Basically talking about the kind of the future of Nintendo and what investors should be looking forward to, and how things are going on with the Switch, etc. So, anyways, I quote. He's talking to the reporter there. "We aren't really fixated on our consoles," he says, "and at the moment we're offering the uniquely developed Nintendo Switch and its software, and that's what we're basing how we deliver the Nintendo experience on. That being said, technology changes, and we'll continue to think flexibly about how to deliver that experience as time goes on. Flexibility is just as important as ingenuity." So, basically, we got the president talking about the future of Nintendo. Obviously, a lot of people took this as oh gosh, Nintendo's gonna focus on other things in the future, and it's yeah, that's absolutely what they'll probably do, but it's not necessarily spelling out the end of the Nintendo console itself. So I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because my hot take on it is, here we go, right? We've got the Nintendo Switch. This thing is phenomenal. And the best part about this thing is that Nintendo managed to put a very good piece of hardware into a small form factor and have it be so enticing and sell so well. And it can only go up from there, right? Technology is only going to, I don't know, just tech is going to get smaller and smaller, faster and faster. And this form factor is, I think, perfectly set up and unique for the times that we're living in, that I feel like maybe whether it's a Switch or a different version of the Switch in the future, I can't see them not continuing down this path with their consoles as long as the market is there for it, because technology is going to get cheaper and smaller and faster, and all of that's just going to make the Switch better over time. So are we going to see a DS, 3DS timeline or lifespan on the Switch? I think we will, but I also think that Nintendo is also looking at the streaming content of the world and thinking about how can we make this make money for us, and of course how are we going to continue to make money on mobile.
Let me say this. My hot take is I just don't see this happening anytime soon. Of course, impossible to guess what the future will hold, but I think it's just a bunch of, pardon my French, but hogwash. Because the thing is about it, consider all the times, I know, Danny, I'm sorry. Consider all the times Nintendo's been, really backed up against a wall in the corner. Not sure how the analogy works. Think about all the times they've been in the back of the room. And in those scenarios, we're talking GameCube, we're talking Wii U. Each time they put out another piece of hardware. Sometimes it takes off, and sometimes they have less success. It stumbles out of the gate a little bit more. And so if they stuck through on those, it's hard to believe they would ever make a full pivot. Something I love about Nintendo is that, they have this weird toy maker mentality when it comes to the hardware. and it's so, for better or for worse, innately entwined with the game, right? The Wii can't get away from the Wiimote. Even the Switch, it's like a lot of games built around either the functionality of the controllers or at least with some aspect of the portability in mind. I think we feel less of that with the Switch than we did with, especially like the Wii U, so many games that had to use the 2 separate screens or what have you. I'd be sorry to see them move away from it, and I feel like they've had so many opportunities in the past to pivot to a Sega, more third-party, relationship with a Microsoft or a Sony. It's so hard for me to imagine them doing it now. That said, we don't know, and we know Google very legitimately is going to get into the gaming space here fairly soon with more browser-based games. You could play Assassin's Creed Odyssey in the Chrome browser. Not long ago, and even that game runs on the Switch in Japan, as does Resident Evil 7 through streaming. So I think we'll see experiments as technology changes, but I really just don't think, they're going to go for it. I just don't think it's a real threat.
Now, just really quickly, right? So we've grown up with Nintendo with presidents who are of a different time, right? Like this current president, the current
right.
Mr. Nintendo, it's a pretty young guy, and I think pretty forward thinking in terms of where he sees technology going and where he can see Nintendo really making a profit. And right now, he's seeing Nintendo make a ton of money on mobile, and those are all just downloaded games on devices that Nintendo doesn't own. And I think that, obviously a lot of microtransactions and other things involved in that.
A lot of waifu.
I would not.
A lot of waifu. You
that?
can't make money without waifu. I've said it once, said it a million times on this show. You need waifu to get ad revenue. Speaking of which, Casper mattresses, order it up now. Use the offer code ANP.
My God.
It won't get you anything.
Danny.
Oh,
what are your thoughts on this? Where do you see Nintendo going in the future? Now we're talking about the next iteration. We're not talking about too far out, right? Like you're thinking what is your thoughts on the next Nintendo console post Switch? And it could be Switch 2.
So the way I've been seeing this, we live in this world of the iPhone creation, of a lot of the various smartphones we now know and love, getting those yearly updates. Sometimes they're just minimal, sometimes they're a little bit more massive. For better or worse, I know Matt and I have talked about this, locally, in person together, but we've mentioned
on the couch co-op.
On the couch together, closely. But we've kind of mentioned this is Nintendo's iPhone. This should be the thing that everyone falls in love with the games,
right?
But can be depending on how they go. If they make all of a sudden the Switch U, that could go down the tube. But this is something that they could turn into something everyone falls in love with the games, but they could fall in love with the hardware for years and years and years, and they would just be, I think, losing money by not doing so. Great concept right now for the Switch. Certainly room for improvement, and a Switch S could fix some of that. A Switch 2.0 or Pro, what have you, new Switch XL, could totally alleviate all those problems and add new features. That would be great if they could somehow make this something in between another tablet and your home console, smart home thing. But I do know the industry eventually will be going that way. Xbox, for example, looking at their next consoles, they're thinking, so far the rumors are, one traditional, you can still get a disc drive. The other one will be purely just streaming.
Download.
So I know that's kind of where the industry's thinking down the road. So
I also wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft comes out with a Switch lookalike, or tries to break into the handheld space.
The Xbox Surface, they're sitting on a gold mine of two brands, but that's for our other podcast.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I would look, the Switch is the ultimate culmination of everything great about the Nintendo experience, right? The handheld space has always been, Nintendo's been dominant. Sony's had good consoles in there too, but it's never, or handhelds, been able to break in. And I love the Switch brings together the Game Boy. It also brings together the multiple players, multiple local play with the Joy-Con. And I would love it if we had another decade of different Switches where eventually, you need, the Switch 10 in order to, or X, but in order to play certain games, but otherwise most of them will run. But I would love that type to be the Nintendo Switch is just a mainstay. It's like your iPhone, but it's your gaming device. It has dedicated buttons, it has local play, and it has all these things. But so I'm of two minds. Either I would love that, but burn it all to the ground. I want it all gone, and I want it on streaming and other people's consoles. And the reason for this is I love buying Switch games. I buy way more than I have time to play, all right? I like seeing the icon on there, and in my head, I lie to myself, and I do this cute little lie, and I say, hey, Austin, you don't got time to play it now. You don't got time to play it tomorrow. But maybe in a week or 2 weeks, you'll have time, and it'll just be part of your Switch library. But this is going to be years of self-deception if then in 3 years or so, the next Nintendo console doesn't play any of these things. And Nintendo is notoriously terrible about backwards compatibility, right? With a couple exceptions. Right. And so I fear the next thing is going to not play it. We're going back to square one where we're like, I can't wait for Link to the Past to come out on this thing and buy it again. And so if it were a streaming service, then at least the emulation of those games would live in a cloud in a form factor where, because you're not doing the processing on your end, you don't need emulation locally, you would always have access to that library of games. And so then actually you could build out a Nintendo library if you're streaming for access to the games.
So do you see, so let's talk Nintendo maybe in the next decade, right? Do you see... streaming does seem to be like the way forward, but Nintendo historically is the toy maker, right? The little toy tinkerer. They love developing. Forever it feels like their mantra has been like, no, we're gonna develop the hardware, and the hardware is how you engage with the game. Like that's it, like integral to it. And then of course everyone flocks to like the more powerful systems, and then they're stuck with their Waggles and their
Fisher Price Wii U gamepad,
pads, right. And I think the Switch is a great example of, I think even more than the Wii, like how a lot of good ideas have come together and it like actually has converged with like where the market is as well, and which is great. But that's not always going to happen, right? So
it feels random that it happened. Like, it's just given Nintendo, and it just seems like
they're kind of like, oh, you like what we like?
We planned on this, but
great.
It feels like the next one's going to be like just off the wall. Like it's a Virtual Boy 2, and like you have to use a vitality sensor on every finger and 3 toes, but it'll be worth it for Zelda.
Right. So that's my question then, is that's the Nintendo we've seen in the past, which has talked about those types of consoles. Now here we have a young president early in his tenure talking about how he sees this potential different vision for their company. And for me, and it sounds like for you, that's pretty exciting to see that, okay, like, yeah, hey, our current console is doing great. We're gonna ride that train for a bit. However, I think the future for us is not necessarily what, for lack of a better term, what gimmick can we get people, can we add to our games and our hardware, but like, where's the market going to go? What's the most profitable thing for us to do? And I think that's got benefits, but I also think it's got a couple of drawbacks. And some of those drawbacks include seeing a lot of our favorite properties show up on mobile and not really living up to what we loved about them, or seeing Nintendo pump out more properties that definitely sell well, aka Mario X, Y, and Z. But maybe not necessarily getting those titles that we've all been like waiting for, the F-Zeros of the world, and the little niche games like Advance Wars.
Right.
But yeah. So I don't know. I agree with you, Austin. I definitely want. I want to. I don't know. Either own a television or Apple TV or something that has like, oh, I have the Nintendo app, and there's all my games. The games I've owned for the last 10 years. We talked about this 10 years ago. A freaking subscription
We'll be
service.
talking about
Wouldn't
it on ANP
amazing?
episode 35 in 10 years.
I don't know. Yeah, Danny, any last minute thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see where you guys are coming from. I'm always someone who prefers to be tied to the tangible world, so I prefer a physical console and physical games. But if it's where we go, I think decades from now,
I just love saying I'm someone who is tied to the real world, which is why I love video games. Yes, no, I agree. Ultimately, the thing is, when I think about, I love the iterative Switch idea, like Danny was talking about. But ultimately, it's like for me, the most important, the name of the game is the game. And it's like, what I want is just ability to play great games, but I want access to games that I own that I don't need to keep having to find a way to get access to. I don't want to hold on to these retro consoles all the time. And so I would like there to be the service, whether Nintendo does it themselves or it's done through a streaming service and you're playing on someone else's platform. I just want access to these games because I have no doubt the games will always be great.
Gris.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Well, boys, I think that's gonna be it for this episode and this week. But thank you for joining us on another Nintendo podcast. Don't forget to use that code word ANP on Casper's website, and then when it doesn't work, shoot them an email and say you listened to this great new podcast called Another Nintendo Podcast, and you'd love that sponsorship code to work called ANP. In any event, thank you for joining me, Danny.
Good to see you both.
And Matt.
Bye. 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 Bye.
So long, farewell.
Avita, say goodbye.
Gris.
Sure. So last week, or maybe 2 weeks before that, Nintendo's president, or his name's not Nintendo.
That's his name.
We could just cut and restart this segment because it's already because editing wise, it's not going to be an issue. And this way, Matt, you just don't use this part of the video.
Okay, and everyone wave their hands.
Gris.
Okay, Danny,
And now.
remove your shirt. This will be good for the video. It's just for the editing, Danny. Okay. Here we go.
Do it for the pod.
Pod, do it for the fans. Clickbait us. Okay.
Okay.
And